Ever walk out of a store like, wait, how'd I end up with all this?
Happens to the best of us.
Right. Today's deep dive is kind of about that biology. It's about all those hidden forces that make us buy what we buy.
And we've got a great guide for this one. Martin Lindstrom's book, Buyology, Truth and Lies About Why We Buy.
Exactly. And what's so cool is that it's based on like one of the biggest neuromarketing studies ever.
Absolutely. This wasn't just asking people, do you like this ad? This was serious science.
Brain scans and everything,
Oh,
right?
yeah. fMRI, SST. They were looking at how our brains actually react to marketing.
Wow. So like 2,000 volunteers, 5 years, $3 million. Someone really wanted to crack the code on why we buy.
They did. And one of the first things they tackled was product placement. You know, like when you see a Coke can in a movie.
Right. You'd think that'd be marketing gold. Just get your product on screen and boom, instant sales.
You'd think so, right. But it turns out it's way more complicated than that. In fact, most new products actually fail.
Really, even with product placement.
Even with it. Lindstrom talks about how companies spend tons of money on it, but it often doesn't translate to sales. So there's got to be more to it than just seeing something.
It's like that thing he said about American Idol, right? Viewers remembering certain products better than others. What was that about?
Exactly. They found that just sticking a product in the background doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
It needs to be part of the story, like integrated into the show.
Like Reese's Pieces in E.T.
Perfect example. It wasn't just random candy. It was key to those scenes with Elliot and E.T.
Right. It was practically a character in the movie. And now that you mention it, I don't even remember what other brands were in that movie.
Exactly. And it's the same with American Idol. They wove brands like Coke and Singular Wireless into the whole contested experience.
So viewers remembered them because they actually meant something in that context. It wasn't just like visual noise.
Exactly. Our brains are good at tuning out stuff that's not relevant.
Which is probably why I can barely remember what I watched on TV last night.
Probably. But you know what our brains are not good at tuning out? Seeing other people with cool stuff.
Oh, tell me about it. Like that story in the book about Steve Jobs noticing everyone in New York wearing those white iPod headphones.
Oh yeah, that's classic mirror neurons at work.
Mirror neurons? What are those again?
There are these cells in our brain that fire not only when we do something, but when we see someone else doing it.
So like if I see someone with a cool gadget.
Your brain's like, hey, I want to do that too.
I want that gadget.
Exactly. It's subconscious, but powerful.
And then there's dopamine, right? That whole feel-good chemical.
Oh, absolutely. Dopamine is all about anticipation and reward. So it's not just wanting to be that person with the iPod.
It's the feeling I imagine I'd get from actually having it.
Exactly. The excitement, the anticipation, that all triggers dopamine.
Yeah.
And companies know how to push those buttons.
Oh, for sure. I mean, think about those stores that are like a whole sensory experience.
Totally. Like Abercrombie and Fitch, right?
Yeah.
The models, the music, the lighting.
The smell.
Yes. It's all carefully designed to trigger those mirror neurons and release dopamine, making us crave their products.
So it's like a carefully orchestrated symphony of marketing, all designed to make us think, I need that new shirt.
Even if you don't.
Right. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, like how much of our decision-making is happening below the surface. It's not always about logic.
Not even close. It's emotions, subconscious cues. Which actually brings us to another fascinating and kind of controversial topic, subliminal messaging. You know, most people think subliminal messaging and they think like hidden images in ads, stuff like that.
Right, or those backward messages on records.
Yeah, exactly. But Lindstrom's point is that it's so much more subtle and it's everywhere.
So it's not just about things we literally can't see.
Right. It's the whole package. The music in the store, the colors, even how products are displayed. It all works on us subconsciously.
So even if I don't realize that the music is making me feel relaxed, my brain's still picking up on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He gives this great example about a perfume brand in Germany. They were struggling, and they were listing their manufacturing locations on the label, you know, Dusseldorf and Oberkoking.
Catchy.
Right. Not exactly Paris or Milan. So they changed it. They put their fancy offices on the label. Paris, London, Rome.
Sneaky.
And guess what? Sales went up just from changing the perception.
Wow. So even something that seems totally unrelated.
Totally. It all plays into the story we tell ourselves about the brand.
Speaking of stories, what about logos? You'd think those would be huge for branding, right? But Lindstrom says not so much.
It's surprising, but yeah, his research found that logos aren't as powerful as you might think.
Really? Why not?
Think about it. Logos, they're often just abstract symbols. What we really remember are the feelings and associations a brand evokes. It's about the story they're telling.
So it's less about the visual and more about the overall feeling, the experience.
Exactly. He uses the example of Marlboro. They couldn't advertise cigarettes the way they used to, so they got creative.
Right. The Marlboro motels, those lounges, genius.
Right. They weren't pushing cigarettes directly,
Mm.
but they were reinforcing that whole Marlboro Man image, the red decor, the cowboy imagery.
Subtle but effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They tapped into those emotions, those aspirations.
Yeah.
Consumers made the connection, even without the logo front and center.
It's like our brains are wired to connect with that stuff, the story, the experience. It's not just about the product itself. It reminds me of that other thing Lindstrom talks about, rituals.
Oh, yeah. Rituals are everywhere, even in the way we buy things.
It's true. Like, you know how I always get my coffee the same way every single day?
Uh-huh.
Same brand, same order. It never even occurs to me to try something different. Is that like a ritual?
Totally. And Lindstrom talks about how those rituals, even if we're not aware of them, they build brand loyalty.
We crave the familiar.
Exactly. It's comfortable. We gravitate toward it. Like, think about Corona with a lime.
Oh, yeah.
Such a simple thing, but it's become a ritual. You see that lime and you think beach, relaxation.
Or Guinness. They turned waiting for the beer to settle into a whole thing.
Exactly. The slow pour. It's a
Mhm.
ritual. They took something that could have been seen as negative and turned it into a positive experience.
That's clever marketing.
It is. And it all comes back to sensory branding, engaging all the senses. It's not just about the product. It's the taste, the smell, the sound, the look, all of it.
Even the sound.
Even the sound. Did you know Kellogg's engineered a specific crunch for their cornflakes?
No way.
Seriously. To make them sound more appealing.
That's wild. And then there are colors, like that Tiffany blue. You see it. You know exactly what it is.
Exactly. Creating a sensory experience, that's the key. It's about connecting with the consumer on a deeper level.
It's almost like, I don't know, some brands tap into that same part of us that connects with, like, belief systems, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Lindstrom makes a really interesting comparison in the book between brands and religion.
It does seem kind of out there at first,
Right.
but when you really think about it, it makes sense. Religions are all about belonging, purpose, meaning. They've got those rituals, the symbols, the stories.
Just like those big, powerful brands.
Exactly. And get this, Lindstrom's research actually found that strong brands can light up the same parts of our brain as religious imagery.
Whoa. So those deep-seated human needs for connection, for something bigger than ourselves, those are at play with brands too.
Yeah, absolutely. He tells this great story about Holy Dirt arriving in New Jersey.
Holy dirt.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but for the people there, it was this profound thing, like a connection to something beyond.
Right, like a relic or something.
Exactly. And successful brands, they tap into that. They create that sense of community, shared values, a story that resonates with us.
It's like that whole Apple thing. It's more than just a phone or a computer. It's about being part of something, you know?
Totally. Or look at brands like Tom MS, this shoe company. They built their whole thing around giving back.
Right. So you're not just buying shoes, you're buying into a cause.
Exactly. It's a powerful connection. But, you know, Lindstrom doesn't just explain why we buy. He also makes these predictions about the future of branding.
And he's not afraid to, like, go there, is he? A world where brands are everywhere, shaping our lives.
It's a lot, right? He paints this picture of brands selling us emotions, aspirations, even solutions to our deepest fears.
It's kind of scary when you really think about it.
No doubt. I mean, we already see fear-based marketing everywhere, anti-aging creams, those home security systems, it goes on and on.
Right. Imagine if that stuff got even more sophisticated.
Exactly. But, you know, he also talks about brands becoming more, like, human, more authentic.
So less about the perfectly curated image and more about real people, real stories.
Exactly. User-generated content, personal experiences, which, you know, brings us back to rituals. Those are the things that really resonate.
Those everyday moments, those personal connections, it's all connected.
Right. As consumers get smarter, we might see less of that traditional advertising and more of this experiential, personalized branding.
Building communities, telling stories.
Exactly. It's about fostering real connections, going beyond just buying and selling.
It really makes you realize how much power brands have, whether we realize it or not.
For sure. They tap into our emotions, desires, even our fears, which is why Lindstrom says awareness is so important.
So we're not just on autopilot.
Right. By understanding how all this works, the biology behind it, we can be more conscious consumers. We can see those triggers and make choices that align with our values.
So it's about taking back control, right? Asking ourselves, do I really need this, or is it just that fancy packaging talking?
Exactly. It's a question worth asking.
Mhm.
Because in a world obsessed with brands, awareness is key.
That's a great takeaway. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into biology. Hopefully, everyone listening has some new things to think about the next time they're out shopping.
Absolutely. Remember, knowledge is power.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, everyone, keep those minds curious.